Hello, very warm welcome to Monday Night Meditation with Brixton Buddhist Community. So this is, it's a really good opportunity where every week we gather together and meditate as a community, new and old. And what we're doing, we're trying to support each other really to develop, aren't we, as human beings and as meditators as well. So as always, the evening is going to be in two parts. So there'll be this first part on YouTube that you're tuning into now, or you may be tuning into it at a later date. But the live evening, the second part of this evening is going to be on Zoom. So we've got a two-part evening. This first part is really to practice meditation, discuss and practice meditation together. And then in that Zoom, you're going to have a chance to really interact with people and have a go at answering some of these questions that might have been thrown up through the evening. Okay. So if you don't know, my name's Mark Trinara. I'm an order member with Triratna Buddhist order, and I teach here at Brixton. But a lot of you do know me. So it'd be really great to know who's out there. Who are you? Say hello, and you can do that on the chat function as always, and I can say hello to you. That'd be nice for me to do. So we've got Emma here. Emma's having her debut on tech. It's very, very exciting. Emma's having her debut on tech. She looks she's inspired me with absolute confidence. I'm feeling really, really good. And Jack's here waiting in the wings as well. Just the three of us braved the weather tonight. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be culminating this series of meditations that we've been doing. This is the sixth of a six-part series on meditations on reality. We've been exploring the three characteristics of existence, and this is the last one. So we've been looking at impermanence, we've been looking at unsatisfactoriness, and this is the concluding second part, concluding insubstantiality. So really kind of key Buddhist meditation kind of tools in a way. So so let's have a look and see who's tuning in. Hello, Tom, Charlotte's here, Tara and Cam. Good to see you. Good to have you with us. Alison, Cheryl. Good to have you with us. And Karina. Hello. And also Mary Jose. Hi, Mary Jose. Not seen you for a while. Good that you're tuning in. If you haven't said who you are, then you can still have an opportunity to do that. So why don't we, as is customary, no matter what kind of day we've had, why don't we spend a short amount of time doing a breathing space together, so that we can really just catch up with ourselves and be as present, as fully present as is possible for the evening. So let's set ourselves up for a short period of meditation. So you can be whichever surface you're on. If you're on a chair, on the cushions, on the sofa, that's fine. Try to see sitting up under your own steam though, not sitting back into the chair back or sofa back. So here we are, closing our eyes and just inhabiting this slightly altered world now with our eyes closed. You might be more cognizant of the sound around you, my voice, but also other ambient sounds, maybe sounds inside your building or outside, maybe even the sound of the rain I can hear here. And you may also, with the eyes closed, have a better appreciation of this physical experience of being human. So here we are, and we can feel our bodies. We can feel that quite directly. and we can feel where our body's making contact with the ground. So there's more sensation present there in that area of contact, and you don't need to do anything about that, just tuning into that, noticing what it's like to be in contact with the ground. And you can just get a sense of your whole lower body from your waist down, just letting go into that contact with the ground. Letting go any holding on. Allowing the weight of your lower body just to sink down into the ground. And just seeing if we can start to soften up in the area of the belly. We're so often holding on in the belly. So just starting to let go in the belly and noticing our body feeling upright from this base of support. Starting to let go around the shoulders. And then noticing your face, your eyes and forehead. Seeing if you can start to soften the gaze, soften your forehead. And to allow your face to soften. And then just feeling your body breathing. Feeling the movement of the rib cage in the front and in the sides and in the back. As the air comes in and as the air goes out. Starting to gather ourselves around these sensations of the breath. Not blanking anything else out. Just allowing ourselves to become more immersed in this process of the breathing. I'm just going to feel how that breath can just start to extend into all parts of the body. Imaginatively breathing into all parts of the body. Smoothing out the tension. Breathing into all parts of the body, energizing the body. And then just getting this sense that we're not alone. We're meditating with others in the Buddhist community, feeling the support of that. And just coming back to your physical sensations of groundedness and ease, or however you are now. And see if you can carry that with you now as we emerge out of the meditation. You don't need to gear up for anything. We're just going to come out of the meditation and open our eyes, that's all. Hi to you, Steph. Hi, Stephanie. And hi, Daisy May, that's joined us as well. Great to have you along as well. Okay. So let's see if we can explore this idea in a way, but also this experience of insubstantiality. We talked about impermanence, didn't we? If you haven't seen the rest of the series, don't really need to worry. This is a standalone as well. But if you did tune in, you might have seen that we were talking about impermanence. We started to, well, both from the kind of rational level, you know that everything's changing, but we started to also experience that in the meditation. Yeah, it's hard to bring that direct experience of change, or as I was saying, inconstancy, into the meditation. And start to see there's just this flow of experience, yeah? There's this flow of experience happening, but we kind of chunk up, we break it up, but if you can just start to tune into it as a flow of experience. And then in the next 2 weeks, we looked at unsatisfactoriness. It's not that the Buddha Dharma is saying that life is misery. It's saying that to the extent that you, within this flow of experience, try to appropriate this, take that, really grasp onto that, and push that away, you're going to experience tension. You're going to experience quite a deep tension. Sometimes quite pronounced in the moment as well, when you're not getting what you want or you're getting what you don't want. So we saw that again in our experience. We started to see that as well in the meditation experience, yeah? And we were breaking that down, having a look at that in our actual direct experience. And what you might have noticed in those preceding weeks is attendant on that unhooking or releasing of this push and pull, and more ease with the sense of things changing in flux. There's a sense of freedom, sense of spaciousness, sense of energy that can arise as a result of that kind of exploration. And you even may have started to kind of see that over-identifying with anything, and this is then more getting into the subject of tonight, over-identifying with anything is painful. Yeah, in the Buddhism it's called grasping, clinging. So we're in relationship, aren't we? Relationship to stuff, kind of material stuff, stuff we have, stuff other people have, and with relationship to people, relationship to experiences, situations, and with any sort of analysis, even quite superficial analysis, you start to see that's just temporal. It's just relative, temporal. These things aren't under control and they will change. And I think we've seen that, haven't we? I'm making some plans about Christmas. God, that's just what's going on, isn't it? We just don't know. Everything is so provisional. So it's really just highlighting how things actually are. And how we just have this kind of semblance, this idea that things are actually controllable and predictable. So yeah, I'm sure you're finding like me that that's come with its challenges, hasn't it? So more challengingly even, or even quite kind of astoundingly, Suddhika started to say last week, okay, but we're a flow of conditions as well. Our minds and our body are a flow of conditions as well. They're only also temporal. He was saying that because conditions are quite stable, or stable enough, that there's this kind of continuity. We intuit this continuity of experience, a continuity of us, continuity of self. We impute a sense of self into these changing circumstances because conditions are stable enough to allow that. And also there are other factors, of course, which kind of lend themselves to that, which I'll go into in a moment. So intuit this self, don't we? Deeply intuit this self, deeply intuit, whether we make that conscious or not, as a body or as a mind or as a combination of the body and the mind. Yeah. But what Buddhism would say about all that is that what we're doing is they're kind of creating a kind of pattern of identification, a pattern of identification. I'm that, which imputes I'm not that. And I was saying the other week, I noticed my daughter and her friends doing this when she was very young, 6 or 7, and they'd just sit there like, which colour is your favourite colour? Which taste is your favourite? Oh, I hate that tea. Oh, I love that colour. So they're working out who they are in relation to their likes and their dislikes. And we do that, but in just a much more subtle, way. So we do that on a kind of, I'm calling it a kind of macro level. We do that in terms of roles that we inhabit, don't we? Career, class, gender, ethnicity. We've got this idea of who we are in this kind of macro level, but we're also doing it on the micro level. Thoughts, that's my thought, feelings, emotion, sensation. We kind of impute that's all kind of mine. Even I'm doing that, you know. And the best way to, look, don't take my word for it, the best way, and we all know this, when things, when we get hot, when we get bothered, when we get jostled, when we don't get what we want, suddenly we're very aware of ourselves. We're very aware of ourselves and aware of other people. That's been kind of maybe is laying rather dormant through the day, but when we're bothered by something, become very aware of self and other. Yeah? So it congregates very, very quickly. So the Buddha was saying that. Well, from a Buddhist perspective, I mean, I can only, from what I've intuited out of or what I've picked up over the time of being a Buddhist, is that from a Buddhist perspective, he's going to operate without a fixed sense of selfhood. No sense of fixity, no sense of separation, just this flow of conditions. But he was very distinct and one could say charismatic, one could say influential. So he didn't disappear. So it's very interesting, isn't it? We think, and I'm going to go into that in a little short while. Well, would we disappear somehow if we didn't have this identification of us as fixed and separate? So I think we can check that out for ourselves. Are we going to disappear? I think we can check it out for ourselves quite kind of safely. I think it's really important to know that we don't try and get rid of a self too quickly. We don't somehow try and impute, oh, Buddhism says there's no self, I'm going to get rid of a self. I'm going to get rid of myself. Because we do operate out of a relative selfhood. That's really, really important. Yeah, well, there's lots of, there's kind of strong reasons why we do that, don't we? All our sense apparatus is housed in the one unit. So that's already makes us feel like very much an in here and out there, doesn't it? Because our sense apparatus is all housed in the one unit, yeah? So straight away we can be forgiven for thinking that we are the centre of the universe, which I do, which you do. We do. We all do. So the sense apparatus, and that basis gives a strong kind of a sense of why we feel at the centre. Also, it's important to have this idea of a relative sense of self to get things done, don't you? To function in the world, to work, to plan, to relate. To duties and responsibilities. So there is this a kind of utilitarian aspect of having a kind of relative sense of me over here and you over there at home, Jack over there and Emma over there. Okay, so it's useful. The Buddha's arguing that this over-identifying with aspects of our experience is what causes us pain. Okay, so will we disappear if we stop identifying so strongly with me over here, me and mine? What happens if we start to soften our identification with me and mine, with this idea of ownership, that anything is kind of ultimately my own, or that I myself am this kind of felt sense of just me, this kind of, which we all have, don't we? It kind of resides, feels like it kind of resides somewhere in the body. What happens if we start to soften that up? So it may be even, we may have some sort of disconcerting ideas around that prior to trying it out. We may start to have an idea that it would lead to some sort of dereliction of our responsibilities, even of our relationships. We'd kind of stop caring. But it's quite contrary. It's actually really contrary, and this is what I want us to see for ourselves. This is what I want to more and more see for myself. That around material kind of stuff, material items, rather than a dereliction of those things, we seem to want to take care of them more. I think we even appreciate them more if we're not so tight around it, yeah? If we're not so tight. There's nothing tighter than someone with a really, really expensive car. Really, really expensive car, because a really, really expensive car, it costs really, really expensive if that's slightly damaged. So there's a real sense of, a strong sense of ownership. Okay, so that's quite painful. That's quite painful. But one could even start to loosen attachment to that. So we can start to loosen attachment to material stuff. We can loosen attachment to people. I think that's really a big part of being a parent. Parents out there may well know what I mean. A big part of a parent initially, when the kids are young, is it's like, in a certain way, you wrap your surface area around them. They're an extension in a way of yourself, especially when they're very, very young. But slowly, as they start to emerge as themselves, you start to have to allow that to happen. You have to allow that to happen, and that's kind of anxiety-provoking, isn't it? You have to allow that to happen. You have to allow them to make mistakes. You have to allow them to fall over and cry and knock themselves. You have to allow them to make mistakes. So that's really, really important. It's really, really important, that, isn't it? And eventually, you have to just accept that they're people. Just as you're a person, you really have to allow them that freedom of choice. So it's interesting, in a way, the hierarchy of things we can let go of leads to this: ideas and ideologies are in a way some of the hardest things to let go of. Gosh, we can we can go to war over ideologies and ideas. But when we start to soften up with the ideas, I think we can become less polarised. You can still argue your point, but we become less polarised. And gosh, doesn't the world really need that? So I think we can start to gain confidence. Gain confidence as we explore in this way, that it won't lead to a dereliction of duty or eroding of relationships, quite the opposite. Become more open, more relaxed, not less. So in a way, that's the kind of theoretical underpinning. It's called insubstantiality because at its root we're saying that no phenomenon that arises has a kind of separate selfhood. It's not like a stick of Brighton rock with Brighton, the name running right the way through it. There's nothing like that, and there's nothing about us which is like that. So it's called insubstantiality for that reason, that there's nothing has a substantial, fixed and knowable nature. So why do we reflect in this way? Because we want some freedom. So in meditation we can reflect on our own experience, and Sudhika was talking more last week about the external world, wasn't he? In a way like what happens with the air. Is that ours as that enters and exits, blurring this a kind of distinction of inner and outer. But this week we're going to explore kind of very directly how we experience our body. We're going to notice tension in the body. We're going to notice sensation. We're going to notice even ease, temperature, and we're just going to very lightly kind of tease out: is that us? Is that us? Is that mine? Yeah, we're just going to very lightly be asking that question. Yeah. We're going to be looking at the Vedana. If you don't know that word, Vedana is a kind of felt sense of our experience. It's always happening. It's happening now. We're either finding this pleasant, unpleasant, or it's a bit undefined for us just now. So this is basic sense of pleasure or non-pleasure in our experience. Is that me? Is that me? Is that mine? Is that under my control? And then we're going to look at sounds. Sounds are interesting. We can use sounds to see, sounds arising and passing away. And we can always also see the space between sounds, or intuit or feel the space between sounds. See what that does, see how that happens to there. And if we can, with a more spacious mind, with a less attached mind, we may start to notice thoughts that are coming and going in the same way. And we may start to notice thoughts coming and going. So there's a couple of things that might happen. I won't say them now. I'll say them a bit later on after we meditate, because I don't want you to kind of necessarily look out for them. Let's just see what happens. But there's a couple of kind of quite predictable results of exploring this way, and we'll see if we together get to them. Yeah? If you're finding it difficult, if you're finding it discomfort, you can always ease off the meditation. Keep a light touch with it. Keep a light touch. These type of meditations are meant to pick up, and we can put them down as well. So we'll do it as a basis of the mindfulness of breathing. First 2 stages of counting, then dropping the counting, and then just concentrate on where the breath enters and exits the body to refine our attention. And I'll just bring in these very gentle reflections as we move through the meditation. So yeah, you don't need to, if you're new to the mindfulness of breathing, I'll be explaining what happens in each of the stages. Emma, could you just pass me that bell over? That'd be really helpful. Thanks so much. Okay, so yeah, just settling into your postures. You can start to get this sense of feeling quite upright but at ease. And just see if you can identify metta. If you don't know metta, It's just this sense of ease, this sense of well-wishing. A sense of ease and well-wishing. So just contacting that in our own experience. You may experience just as a kind of warmth in the body. Some sense of well-wishing. Just connecting with this sense of ease in the body. Just allowing the body to calm down. Allowing the nervous system to calm down. Feeling our weight, feeling our contact with the ground. Softening in the tummy, in the shoulders, in the face and eyes. And contacting the movement of the breath in the body. The sensations of the breath in the body. So we're just going to stable ourselves in relationship to the breath by just counting after the out-breath. So we breathe out, we count 1 at the end of the out-breath. And in the next out-breath, we count in 2. Just following that count up to 10 and then starting back to 1 again. So the count is quite quiet after the out-breath. And you're feeling those sensations of the breath, particularly the out-breath. You might try and locate them in space. Start to get a sense of the texture of the breath. So using the counting to stay with the breath, start to gather ourselves together with our attention without blocking anything else out, but starting to gather more attention around the breath. It's calming down. Feeling the nervous system calming down as we gather our attention around the breath. And we're going to just subtly change the count now to just catch the in-breath. So just count just before the in-breath. Trying to catch the whole of the breath that follows, the sensations of the whole of the breath that follows. So dropping the count in just before the in-breath. Starting to notice the energy of the breath. Releasing the tension in the body. Dropping the counting. Staying with the breath where it feels most vivid. Feeling the change in texture of the breath. Subtly dropping in. Question, is this breath mine? Is this breath mine? These sensations, are they mine? Keep it light. Stay with the breath. In the body. Are the sensations confined just to the body, to the outline of the body? Stay with the breath, sensations of the breath. Is this me doing the breath? Stay grounded, stay with the breath. Staying at ease. And the Vedana, this felt sense of the breathing, of this being alive in this moment, following the breath, the pleasure or the non-pleasure, that direct sense is associated with this process we're in. Is that me? Stay with the sensations of the breath. Staying at ease. Whatever you experience, pleasant or unpleasant, is that mine? Is it fixed? Is it under my control? Still feeling it? Just how it is. Still staying with the breath. Allow our minds to broaden out, to take in the sounds as well. Notice the space seems to open up as a result of broadening out. Still with the breath, broadening out our awareness. How does this felt sense of the breath feel now? Staying at ease. Staying with the breath. With this broader experience, taking in the whole body, the sensations of the whole body, broadening our experience out, our consciousness, our awareness out. And then just resting lightly on where the breath enters and exits the body. Can you feel it there, just enter and exit in the body? Tuning into the more subtle sensations. If any thoughts are present, you may notice how they may just come and go, the sound. Is that you? Is that yourself? Are those thoughts ours? Staying with that subtle sensation of the breath. Staying relaxed. You can just release your attention from the breath and just sitting in awareness. And just bringing attention to physical sensations of groundedness, coming back to that felt sense of being grounded, that normal sense of being embodied, and just feeling the support of the other people who are meditating alongside us. Okay, good. So, I'm just going to need to put in a password. Okay, so I've got you live at home and I've got you live here as well. So, yeah, let's just see what, if there's any questions at all or reflections on how meditating in that way affected you, affected your experience, or anything else that came out of the talk.
What would you say to someone who had a reaction that sounds something like, well, of course, this is me and this is mine. You know, I can imagine that there being a reaction to that that's kind of like, well, yeah, this is my breath, this is my body. How would you respond to that?
So you're asking me to imagine if someone responded in such a way during a meditation class, and I was started to get them to explore whether the breath, the sensations were themselves, and they just stopped and opened their eyes and said, "Like, of course they are."
I only ask you this because I've had this conversation with people, and that's the response I get generally. It's like, well, yeah, this is me. It's, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm joking a bit, but I mean, I think partly it may be the response. Well, if it's not mine, then whose is it?
Yeah.
As if that's a reasonable dichotomy. If it's not me, who is it then? But what we're trying to do in meditation is actually see directly, isn't it? So I mean, in a way, you can't really argue it from a rational, because from a common sense, rational, deeply intuitive sense, like, no, it's mine. Whose else is it? But I think once you start with any kind of degree of seriousness to explore it, you can start to see that starts to break down in some ways, because if it was all me, then the sound would be me. Everything that would be happening in my experience would be me, right? Including the sound, the touch, everything else. But as you start to explore it directly, I think that starts to not really make sense. Do you see what I mean? So in a way, I think it does require that direct or that willingness to explore directly. If you just try and argue the matter, well, somebody could just disagree with you if they wanted to. Do you know what I mean? So in a way, you would probably have to set up stable enough conditions where you would just do a short breathing space and actually guide them into some direct experience. Because so often we just kind of so alienated, and we just have this kind of idea of ourselves, moving through the world as a kind of me shape. But when you start to see how changeable things are, you start to recognise how kind of you have to have a kind of willingness to explore that, I think, to explore the changeable, inconstant nature of your experience and how these senses are just kind of doing themselves. I'm not doing that sound, and nor am I doing that touch, and nor am I doing the sensations of the breath. It's just kind of unfolding, and this sense of me is kind of something I'm imputing on over the top of that. So yeah, I think you'd have to. There needs to be a willingness to explore that. Yeah. Is that
satisfying?
no,
that is satisfying. Yeah, I think there's definitely a difference between exploring something using reason and conversation,
Yeah.
and then actually just saying, well, hang on, stop, pay attention to what's actually happening.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of
That's
conversation. It requires more openness.
That's it, and you're moving people towards their experience. Just gonna peel off for a second, Jack, because there's quite a lot going on here. Towards the end, it felt like there was much more space around my thoughts. Could catch them a bit sooner before they went into more of a story. Feel the sensations associated with them. That's from Charlotte. There's a lot from Charlotte. Tension in my head connected to thoughts. About me versus someone else. That's interesting. We'd have to hear a bit more about that, Charlotte, as to what you meant by me versus someone else. When I got curious about physical sensations, things going on that weren't those thoughts, like sounds, I started to relax more deeply. Yes. So quite a lot going on there. Thanks, Charlotte. Quite a lot of interesting experiences as a result of just bringing this light reflection to something as kind of commonplace as the breath. So I'll be interested to try this out on you guys. So there's these two well-worn kind of modes that one can get into if one explores in this way. And I just want to see if this chimes with anyone at home, and it seems to be a bit with you, Charlotte, already. One of the modes is that you can start to get a sense that your sensations are kind of arising out of a space, out of a kind of not a nothingness, could even be thought of as quite a kind of vibrant, alive kind of space, but nonetheless they're coming out of the space and dissolving back into that space. So a kind of quite a spatial experience of sensations, Vedana, feeling tone, thoughts, sounds, and so on, as if they're kind of arising and passing in and out of a wider space. That's not me. That I'm not kind of doing that. And the other thing that can happen is that you start to get a sense that, gosh, there's all these conditions which are kind of mapping together to create whatever's going on now, including the sound, including the breathing, including the thoughts that are going on, so being conditioned by memories, planning. So the people that I'm with, they're all kind of, it seems to be all coming together into this current experience. So you start to get this sense of these various kind of influences that are being brought to bear on what's just arising, you know. Yeah, so I wondered, did anybody, I think Charlotte kind of intimated that thing with the space. Did either of those sound familiar, just out of interest? Getting a nod from Emma?
Yeah, definitely the space one.
The space one, yeah. Yeah.
Things, when they're coming up, they've got much less kind of like close.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that Charlotte was saying as well. Less bound up, like in, well, often it feels like in the head, doesn't it? Interestingly. So there's this spaciousness that can arise, and then there's just all this stuff that's kind of going on. But it doesn't feel like you know, like you don't vanish, do you? That's what's interesting. You know, like, you don't vanish, do you? You're still present in the awareness that you're bringing to it. So the awareness, in a way, is enough, without all this idea of I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm creating that and I wish that wouldn't happen. I wish that. So it's just the awareness kind of. It strangely feels, you still feel very, very present, don't you? You haven't kind of left the building. Elvis hasn't left the building, has he?
I feel much bigger.
I feel bigger.
Like I'm containing, like I become the container of the experience,
interesting.
rather than like a little
Yeah.
not of experience.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I know that rings in my experience as well, that you can feel like you can almost, your self sense in a way almost just kind of expands to include everything else that's happening, you know. Yeah, that's quite interesting. Yeah, let's have a little look. So Tara's got something to say here. Tara says, I felt like my edges dissolved a bit and I become wavy, like air looks on a runway. That sounds beautiful. What an evocative image. I love that. Thank you, Tara. Yes, and I know what you mean. It's a bit similar to what you're saying there, Jack, isn't it? You kind of, there's a spaciousness, but you know, but you don't disappear. I think that's what's so interesting. It's like you don't disappear. Although, I'll just throw in actually something for those, you know, trying this at home, as they say, which is that there can be associated feelings of fear that arise with this type of practice. So I just want to flag that up, just so that if you experience that, you don't freak out, because to start to loosen attachment, there can be sometimes things are quite cherished. Our attachments are quite cherished, and so to let go can feel like there can be some fear attached to that, or there can be some fear in the waviness, as you described it, Tyler, the spaciousness, because we're not used to inhabiting a more kind of spacious experience in that way. So just to say that that can happen, it's not a given at all, but that can happen, and it's not that you're doing anything wrong if that happens. In fact, that fear can even be brought in as part of the, if you're kind of subtle enough, you can bring that in as part of the meditation. Like, is this fear kind of mine? Is this fear that's arising, which is a whole set of sensations and thoughts probably, is that me? But the other thing you can do is you can just ease off. You can just lighten up. You can come back to metta, come back to the breath. These meditations are designed or as tools to inhabit and then just to drop away. Yeah, I should say that as well, because if you find that you're trying too hard, walking around going, no, this isn't me, this isn't mine, you know, and getting all a bit kind of like clumsy in your mind about it, kind of almost banging up against that thought, you're probably trying too hard. Might be right time to let that reflection ease off for some while. So just to say that, just a little footnote, that these practices can have attendant on them some other experiences other than freedom and bliss. I think as one even explored fear, one would start to could start to release about that. Could be quite exciting as well, but that's quite difficult to do sometimes. On that rather mysterious note, I don't know, I feel like I've left it on a rather mysterious note, but that's all right. We kind of come to the end of this series. If you haven't seen, you can check the backlog on our YouTube, the other 5. But that's the final one of this 6 series. Of course, Monday nights carries on with a new mini theme starting next week. Normally we'd pass at the end, as the night comes to a close, or as the night comes to a close, we'd have an old worn wooden bowl. Those of you that have been around pre-COVID know our old wooden bowl and our old well-worn card reader. And we'd just be asking for donations to keep this whole community vibrant and going. And we'd be asking for £5 for unwaged or £10 for waged. So you can just not put that in the wooden bowl, not put that in the card reader, but you can put that in on our donate button. Very simple to do, and that'd be really appreciated. That will keep us being able to push more out, expand out what we're able to do and reach more people. So thanks if you can do that. Wednesday night is back. That is, Wednesday night never went away, but Wednesday night in person is back. I think it probably sounds like it'll be the last one for a while, right? But this, I think there are places, so you could go out, you know, you could come for a socially distanced evening on Wednesday night, and details on the website. Details in the site as well? Details on the website, yeah. So, second part of the evening will commence at 2:15, so time for a cup of tea and a short leg break, a leg stretch, toilet break. And these are the questions that you could bring into that Zoom. I know Charlotte will be there, Stephanie will be there, and you could be asking, you could kick proceedings off with, well, do we recognise how we over-identify with aspects of ourselves and aspects of our lives? And we could ask, well, what happens when we loosen that identification? As I said, there could be a whole broad range of responses to that. And how does meditation, or does meditation contribute to that? How have we noticed meditation kind of feeding into that process of identification and or becoming aware of identification, loosening identification? So a few questions you might want to bring into that second half. Okay, but for now, thank you, Emma, for your maiden voyage on the TED. Excellent, well done. I think it's well done anyway. I have to play it back later. Thanks very much, Jack, and thanks to everyone at home. Have a very good night.